Good afternoon, SIOP. It has been a fantastic and memorable 28th annual SIOP conference. The sessions, activities, and networking have all been outstanding. During the last year, we've focused on extending the influence of IO psychology. And today, we're going to wrap up with a very special keynote address that highlights a program that has been influencing the lives of hundreds of young students right here in Houston. Before we introduce the keynote speaker, however, I want to thank all the presenters and the many volunteers who helped make this conference such a success. Special thanks go to the members of the program committee and to the conference committee. And to introduce our keynote speaker, here's Conference Committee Chair Robin Cohen. Robin, thanks go to you and your team for such an exceptional job. Thank you very much.
He had to move my stool back over. Thank you. Well, I am so excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Father T.J. Martinez. But before I do that, I want to say a big thank you to Mickey Hebel. Where's Mickey sitting? So Mickey is a person that suggested that we speak to Father Martinez, so I just want to say thank you so much. So now to Father Martinez. Reverend T.J. Martinez is founding president of Cristo Jesuit College, Preparatory School of Houston. Raised in Brownville, Texas, Father Martinez entered the seminary after receiving a bachelor's degree in political science with honors from Boston College. During his training for the priesthood, he earned 5 graduate degrees, including a law degree from the University of Texas and a school leadership degree from Harvard University. While at Harvard, Father Martinez was honored with the 2008 Harvard Intellectual Contribution and Faculty Tribute Award, graduated with a 4.0 GPA, and became a Nathan Glazer Fellow of the school. He was selected to deliver the Harvard Graduate School of Education student commencement address and returned to Texas to found the newest Jesuit high school in the country, Cristo Jesuit College Prep, a high school taking the poorest children off the streets and getting them into college in 4 years. In 2010, Father Martinez was knighted into the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre, a papal knighthood that recognizes great service to the church in founding the newest Catholic high school in the state of Texas. The Jesuit Volunteer Corps USA presented Father Martinez with the prestigious Standard of Christ National Award in 2011 for his service in providing a private college prep education to children living in poverty. Houston Magazine, Paper City, named Father Martinez one of the 4 new influencers in the city in 2012 for his citywide advocacy of greater opportunities for higher education for all children. And in 2013, the Phi Beta Kappa Society will award Father Martinez the Outstanding Contribution to Education Award for his founding work in launching a new model of education in the city of Houston. As you can see, Father Martinez has an incredibly impressive background. I had the good fortune of visiting the school and spending a few hours with Father TJ, and I can honestly say that you will not only be touched by his story, but by the amazing person that he is. Father Martinez.
I think the intro was a little bit longer than the speech is going to be. We'll get that quick. So I wanted to very much say thank you to the entire SIOP gathering here. A good afternoon, or since we are in Texas, I should really say good afternoon, y'all, to Texas, and welcome down here. I also want to thank Robin for the very kind introduction. You read it exactly like I wrote it. And I want to say at least half of the things I wrote were true. I really appreciated that wonderful intro. And because of you, I feel taller at this podium. I don't know why. I also want to thank Doug Reynolds and my dear friend Mickey for being key people who guided me through this wonderful opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. As I was coming up and preparing, I got to glance at Doug's comments that are prepared and wonderful, and he's already prepared the comments after my speech. So it says, Father Martinez, thank you for your outstanding address. So I basically could sit down right now and be a total success at SIOP. Thank you, Doug, already. I mean, that's a big leap of faith, and I'm the priest, my friend. Now, I would imagine, knowing the history of the annual SIOP conference and knowing the traditions of your membership, that the last person you would have imagined speaking to you at the gathering here would be a Catholic priest. Even more jarring might be the revelation that I'm not only a priest and a Catholic, but even worse, a Jesuit Catholic priest. It would not normally be something that I would mention, but as news stories around the country have been talking about it for this past month, for the first time in our Jesuit history, a Jesuit priest was elected Pope of the 1.2 billion Catholics around the world. I'm not sure what this means to you, but for me, I take this as a sign that I should be charging double for speaking engagements. And now that that glass ceiling for Jesuits has been shattered in Rome, I also am thinking one day you might see me on that balcony one day at the Vatican. And if I ever make it to that wonderful balcony, I will make sure to give SIOP a huge shout out. And for those who stayed for the closing speech and are not already on their way to the airport right now, I'm going to give each of you a free venial sin to use any way you want to. Don't tell Cardinal I said what I just said right now to you all here. As some of you who were either taught by the Jesuits or know Jesuits, you know that Jesuits are men of great devotion, loyalty, and prayers, but they're also very practical people. Much like the majority of SIOP, we integrate learning and doing, and in the process of doing, we learn more. Like you, we are a group of priests and professionals who are entrenched in principles and theories, while at the same time understand the importance of taking into account reality and context, which requires flexibility and adaptability. And probably like many of you in this room, we always take an advantage of an opportunity to further our mission. A quick story about a Jesuit to illustrate this. A farmer named Muldoon lived alone in the countryside except for a pet dog he doted upon. The dog one day died, and Muldoon went to meet with the local Jesuit priest, saying, "Father, my dog is dead. Could you possibly say a funeral mass for him?" Peering over his glasses and down his nose, the Jesuit told the farmer without hesitation, "No, we don't do services for animals in this church. Why don't you go to the Episcopalian church down the road? They will do that for you, I'm sure." Farmer Muldoon said, "I'll go right now. But before I go, Father, I need your advice. Do you think $50,000 is enough to donate to them in appreciation to the service?" The Jesuit, again without hesitating, responded, "Why didn't you tell me your dog was Catholic?" Two lessons to garner from this story. First, now you know my secret to raising $19.5 million in 4 years. I have buried a lot of dogs in Houston, my friends. Some people are getting it even a little later than that. Even though you and I might come from different backgrounds and work in different fields, both of us are practical professionals. Both of us are interested in helping people, and both of us could use each other's situations and stories to help our own. So with your indulgence this afternoon, and with the hope that my situation might help yours, here's my story. once upon a time, really a little over 4 years ago, as I was finishing up my last degree in Boston, I received a call from my Jesuit superior in New Orleans. Up until that point, the Jesuits were grooming me for a first assignment at Loyola University Law School in New Orleans, since they had already sent me for a law degree. Father Kammer, who was my superior at that time, started the conversation by saying how proud he was of everything that I had done, and the Jesuits were blessed to have me. At the time, I just basked in the glow of his comments, responding to his copious compliments with great humility by saying, "Yes, I know." But in retrospect, I should have been a little less naive, and I would have noticed that with each passing point of praise, darker and more ominous clouds of warning were gathering over the Jesuit house I was living in. No sooner had he softened me up than he went in for the kill. "TJ," he said, "I've decided to mission you to something totally different than what you and I have been talking about for 12 years. I want you to immediately report to Houston and lead the launching of a new model of Jesuit high school called Cristo Rey." With my face paralyzed in shock and dizzy from this new information, I could only manage to sputter out one question. "What," I pleaded, "has been done in Houston to prepare for the launching of this new school?" He responded by saying, "It would be easier to let you know what I've not done. I've raised no money for you. I have hired no one for you. I have no building for you. There are no teachers, no students. Really, nothing has been done to prepare for this." I asked him, "Is there any good news you can tell me at the end of this conversation?" With great confidence, he responded, "Absolutely. The only way you can go with this one is up, Martinez." That's that Jesuit humor again. 3 weeks later, I arrived in Texas, and I hit the ground running. And since this was August in Houston, I hit the ground running and sweating all at the same time. Emboldened by Jesuit missionaries 450 years ago, they themselves who took leaps of faith across oceans and into continents, I too framed myself being on mission. I had a powerful story, and if it were to come true, the private educational landscape in the city and the positively altered futures of Houston's poorest children would be changed forever. The story of whether or not we could start Cristo Rey Jesuit depended on the convergences of 3 yeses in response to 3 questions. First, could we open a private college preparatory school and develop a supportive yet rigorous and demanding academic program that would get children off the streets and into college in 4 years? Second, could we open a school that would only take children living at or below the federal poverty line, eliminate totally the traditional tuitions that other schools charge, and charge a simple fee to parents so that they had some skin in the game? Finally, since we could not rely on any tuition revenue, could we find an alternative stream of revenue by reimagining the curriculum that would include a full paying jobs program, not as an after-school program, but as part of the school week for these children? Students would be earning these salaries, and they would turn them over to the school to pay for their own education, and they would have the added benefit at the end of their 4 years at Cristo Rey Jesuit of having a resume with 4 blue ribbon corporations on it and use it to get into colleges. In my mind, if these 3 yeses could ever be aligned into one program, this next greatest generation of education reform would arrive in the city, and we would launch my dream school, Cristo Rey Jesuit College Prep. armed with a small group of supporters and building an incredibly wonderful and talented team, I went out into the city to rally the troops. In the midst of a devastating economic recession and in the middle of rebuilding the city after the destructive Hurricane Ike, we opened Cristo Rey Jesuit to 81 of the poorest children in the city in 2009. While our fundraising efforts were crucial to an earlier than expected launch, the key component and what is most relevant for all of you at SIOP today is how we were going to sustain and maintain our economic model on reaching out to corporations in this city so that their employers and employees would become our partners, and in so doing, change the course of history in the way a private school could educate the poorest children in the city. And while all of us, especially at that times, and companies were downsizing their employee base, we needed a way to get companies on board not only to hire our kids, but even more become long-lasting and committed, impassioned believers in our cause. Two things, I would argue, greatly contributed to our early successes of engaging multinational for-profit organizations to circle around the wagons around this small Southeast non-for-profit high school. First, rather than frame Cristo Rey Jesuit as a program to employers that was looking for charity, we framed our partnership with them in terms of investment, an investment in both the larger common good and their own local corporate good. Children who graduate from high school and go on to college make an estimated $1.1 million more in their lifetime. On the reverse side, high school dropouts cost taxpayers, including corporations, an average of $1.1 million over our lifetime, and with more and more studies showing that there is an alarming reality that it is a small step to go from high school dropout to prison. Those who graduate from high schools become contributors back to society as both customers and benefactors. They are the ones who not only fuel the economic engine of the free market upon which all of us here rely, but they stabilize that market by setting down roots and growing families. In terms of a benefit closer to our corporate home, we caught the attention of CEOs and of those in charge of human resources by asking them to imagine the possibility of being able to train and enculturate one of their employees from the age of 14. Harking back to the days of my own grandfather, who learned the grocery wholesale business by working with his dad every day after school since the 8th grade, by the age of 21, he was the master of the business. In so, and in a very same way, our students would become the adoptive sons and daughters of the employers and employees they worked with. Their student workers would become crucial in terms of a homegrown leadership and loyalty. And just as important, with our student population being 98% children of color, our kids would serve as a rich resource for future corporate leaders from our Latino and African American communities. Far from being an issue of charity, I said to these corporations, they would become sources of income and promise and would allow children living in poverty to work their way through school and become Houston's future women and men. These corporations, by investing in Cristo Rey Jesuit, became signs and signals of a bold and visionary move of where they thought these kids could be and where we thought this city could be, and gave a clear message to both their employees and their external constituents that they were visionaries and prophetic. Our employers understood that their authority and relevancy stood in terms of decades and centuries, and not simply in terms of economic quarters and fiscal years. Invest in Cristo Rey Jesuit, I always said to companies, and you are investing in your own future. Second, I have come to find that while people are certainly motivated by the amount of salaries and the status they hold in jobs, on a deeper level, people are just as motivated, if not more, by being connected to something bigger than themselves and even bigger than the corporations they work for. In my 4 years of prospecting, cultivating, and stewarding our corporate partners, and in being in town halls and talking regularly with employers and their employees, I have come to believe that all employees yearn for and seek out, not only in their personal lives, but in their professional lives, an avenue and a forum where they can leave the world better than they found it. As such, smart and visionary employers who want their organizations to succeed will participate in a narrative that is larger than their own, so that their work is measured not only in terms of production, but also in terms of transformation. They not only would contribute to the present success of the company, but they could also contribute to the future success of our world. Cristo Rey Jesuit offers that larger narrative to these companies by affording them the opportunity to directly shatter the negative cycles of poverty and violence and drugs, and give children a chance to work their way from the streets and into college. Our profits and our corporate partners go from making profits to actually being prophetic, so that their participation and their involvement in Cristo Rey makes them corporations that are game changers for kids and families and the city. Moreover, the impact is exponential, as companies now have the power to rewrite the history and trajectory of a student's life, and in so doing, change the life of their families and the generations of their families to come. Now, while I can stand here and wax eloquently about the social benefits, about the corporate benefits, about the employee morale benefits of this altruistic storyline of Cristo Rey Jesuit, and how we contributed and continue to contribute to employers and employees and their understanding of their broader mission in the world, nothing says success like numbers. In 3.5 short years, because of the hundreds of corporate employees around the city of Houston, we have taken together in volunteer hours alone a building that was battered and broken and transformed it and built it up to now an 84,000 square feet facility, which has technology throughout, preparing our children for college and corporate careers beyond Cristo Rey. When I arrived to Houston, we were literally knocking on doors and begging parents, grandparents, or legal guardians to send their children to our innovative yet untested school. That first year, with so many employees and employers helping us out, we were able, as I said, to open the school to 80 children. Only 3.5 years later, I was thrilled, because of the work of corporations, not to welcome 80 children, but to welcome 450 children to the school. And we now have 400 more applications for next year's freshman class. While we initially signed on a few brave corporations to hire our students to work in their companies, I'm very proud to report that that small handful of corporations, those visionary and prophetic corporations who want to join a larger narrative, have ballooned into 111 blue ribbon corporations, so that every child now at Cristo Rey Jesuit has a paying job and is working their way through school. And while 3 years ago our working students earned a small amount of money to help pay for a small part of the cost of their education, as we kept the school going, more and more children joined, more and more corporations followed us and rallied around us, and it is surreal to me to announce that rather than a small amount of money, this year our students will be earning an astounding $2.4 million towards their own school. But the most, holy cow. I did not ask her to do that, just so you know that. But I loved it, and I will pay you for it later, yeah. But the most important numbers are these. These numbers go to the very core of our mission. In an area of the city, on the southeast side of Houston, where there is a 60% high school dropout rate reported by public schools and independent surveys, with a larger percentage of that dropout rate if you are Latino or African American. This year, we will host our first graduation in the history of the school, and I'm overwhelmingly proud to report that rather than a 60% dropout rate, 100% of our students will graduate from this very rigorous high school. They will be the first in their families to do so, and even more, as of the end of last week, 100% of our students have been accepted into colleges around the country. The only other statistic that I could make with regards to giving you some information about the school is something we have not yet announced. 4 years ago, Andres applied to be part of the first class of Cristo Jesuit. When we reviewed his financial information, I realized that he was so poor and the family was struggling so much that we could never charge him even $1 to go to Cristo Jesuit. The wonderful mother was a single mother abandoned by her husband years ago, raising 3 boys, living in a 2-room apartment with no air conditioner and no heating, and selling tortillas as part of her income to the local supermarket down the street to pay the bills. So I called Andres' mother, and we made a deal. Rather than pay the money, if she would bring me a package of tortillas so that once a month we could give those tortillas to our kids for breakfast, that would count as her tuition. She beamed, we shook on the deal, and for 4 years, Andres has been attending our rigorous private college prep school on what I call, cutely, the tortilla tuition plan. Andres will be part of the inaugural graduating class this year. Will be the first in his family ever to graduate from high school and attend college. And I'm thrilled to announce, especially as Mickey is here in the crowd, for the first time, that among the offers he received across the country, he has been accepted and he will begin his university career this fall at Rice University. So my friends, that's my story. That's my Cristo Jesuit story to you to use as you feel fit. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's probably not the typical plenary closing one might hear at a SIOP annual conference. And quite frankly, I really should have waited to accept your invitation for next year's conference since we're going to be in Hawaii together. Come on, Robin, you should have waited on that one. But perhaps my story today offers some insights as to how corporations and employers, all of those people you work with or you work for in your own professional lives, can integrate seamlessly productivity and social outreach, can expertly weave a corporate culture of not only doing well, but doing good. I have the firm belief, my friends, that if you are able to guide your companies and clients into integrating a larger social narrative into their own, then people will say about you and your work at SIOP that you have a broader vision, and because of you, they will say that for the second time in history, humankind discovered fire. My deepest thanks to all of you for being with me today. Don't forget, if you have a Catholic dog that needs a good burial, I'm available. God bless you, and God bless your incredible work here at SIOP. Thank you.
Well, let's see. You already took my line. Father Martinez, thank you for that.
You forgot to say outstanding.
Wait for it. Inspiring speech, that outstanding speech. What a great way to end our conference. So thank you very much. And as a token of our thanks, I wanted to present you with a donation from SIOP to the Cristo Rey School to help you with your mission. It is now my distinct pleasure to present to you the person that will lead SIOP next year, Dr. Tammy Ellen. In case you didn't know, Tammy is as a professor at the University of South Florida. Her research centers on, I'll be brief, I promise. Her research centers on individual and organizational factors that relate to career development and employee well-being at both work and home. Specific interests include work-family issues, mentoring relationships, career development, organizational citizenship, and occupational health. She's author of over 90 peer-reviewed articles that have been published in a variety of journals. Her research has received best practice awards from organizations such as the Academy of Management and the Society for Training and Development. Author of several books on mentoring and personal relationships at work, she's also associate editor of Journal of Applied Psychology and past associate editor of the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology. Tammy received her doctoral degree from the University of Tennessee and is a SIOP fellow and an APA fellow. Tammy, I am confident, and we are confident, that you will do an exceptional job in leading the organization this year. So now I happily present you with the official SIOP gavel. Use it well. Good luck.
We have a couple of items for you, Doug, first. First, thank you again for the superb, outstanding, excellent leadership. Give Doug a round of applause. This is a manly lay, I've been told.
Thank you.
Well, I have been feeling great all weekend. I feel even better after that fabulous talk by Dr. Martinez, our professor, just priest, father. Gosh. See, I've been celebrating my 21st birthday this weekend, maybe a little too much. But yes, I just turned 21 in SIOP years. This is my 21st consecutive SIOP conference. Each SIOP conference has offered me, as well as I'm sure many of you, opportunities to renew old connections and to make new ones. It is these connections that help each of us grow as professionals, expand the boundaries of our research, and find new opportunities to practice and apply our science. As president, I want to weave this theme of connection into the goals, priorities, and initiatives for the coming year. I envision our society being more interconnected internally and externally, and subsequently more influential. It is through expanding our society's connections that we can further increase our visibility and advance the understanding and impact of our discipline, and perhaps be part of the larger narrative of science. With this in mind, I want to take just a few minutes to share with you 5 priorities and objectives that I have over the coming year. The first is to strengthen the connection between SIOP and local IO groups. We have made great strides over the past several years in the development of our global alliances. It is time to also nurture relationships at the local level. To that end, we have a recently chartered ad hoc committee chaired by Bill Farmer, examining ways in which we can develop and maintain a network for local IO groups. How can SIOP help these local IO groups, and how can these local groups help SIOP? Bill and his team are already making great progress, and we'll be hearing more about this effort throughout the year. The second is to increase the presence of IO psychology in general psychology courses, texts, and exams. In the cab ride here, the driver asked me what was I in town for. So I told her I was in town for the largest gathering of IO psychologists in the world. So you all know her response, right? Say it with me. What is IO psychology? Okay. But even more concerning to me was when I gave a talk last summer at a summer institute for outstanding undergraduates who were considering graduate school in psychology. Not a single one of these students had heard of IO. We have thousands of students who take intro psych each year in my university alone. Every single student who has taken a Psych 101 course should be able to answer the question, what is IO psychology? So this is an initiative that has actually spanned many years and has crossed multiple committees. Over the next several months, Whitney Botsford and Scott Tony Dandel from the E&T Committee will be developing a written history and evaluation of our previous efforts, as well as recommendations for future steps and metrics that we can use to chart our progress. The third, is that on 3? Okay. Consider new products for communicating our science and practice that reach a broad audience. One idea under this umbrella is the development of a practice-oriented journal. The objective is to be able to translate our science, make our research more accessible, create a potential new revenue stream, and provide another platform for publishing by our members. Now, at the town hall meeting yesterday, I mentioned this initiative, and Gary Latham said to me afterwards, "Tammy, we've tried this before. It hasn't worked. What are you going to do different this time?" I said, "Gary, it's a hard, specific goal. It'll work." Well, I hope this will work, but like all good IO psychologists, or what we should be doing, we're going to begin with a needs analysis. So look for a survey in the near future intended to collect your thoughts on the need, interest, and potential commitment that there is for this concept. Alan Church, our publications portfolio officer, is spearheading this effort. So in the meantime, please feel free to contact Alan directly with your thoughts. The fourth is to continue to build our internal and external infrastructure for science advocacy. Advocacy has been one aspect of our strategic objectives somewhat slower to advance. However, we are now at a real turning point. as Doug mentioned in his opening address, we are on the brink of contracting for external advocacy expertise. We also have a recently formed internal advocacy committee. So over the coming year, this new internal committee is going to be working with our external firm to help us develop a science advocacy agenda. We're also going to continue to develop tools that increase our internal capabilities for science funding. One idea that we have in mind for the Hawaii conference is to have a speed mentoring session on science funding. So we're going to keep beating this advocacy drum until we make music. The fifth is to map our science. What I am showing here is a map that many of you, particularly if you are in a psychology department, have probably seen before. It is a map of science that has been used to support psychology as one of the 7 hub sciences. A hub science is one that contributes not only to itself, but to other fields as well. So what we see here is psychology, and it may be difficult to see, but psychology is most closely positioned to other disciplines such as nursing, public health, and education. So what if we pulled IO psychology out? Where would it fall? For example, would it be closer to management? How are we connecting to the rest of psychology? What if we're not very connected, and what if that's one of the reasons why we're not included in intro psych classes? How about fields outside of psychology? Are there other sciences that we should be connecting to that we're not? What does this say about our identity? Doug mentioned Thursday morning in his address that we need to look in the mirror. Hopefully, with a better understanding of how our science is connected with others, we can identify gaps, threats, and opportunities that can inform and advance all of our strategic objectives. So finally, I want to give you a bit of a preview of the presidential theme track for the Hawaii Conference, which will be chaired by Kristen Shockley. The theme track will build on this overall theme of connection by examining breakthrough thinking. We want to explore ways in which we can shift paradigms, connect to other areas of psychology, and cross cultural divides. The medium is going to be through TED-like talks. Some of these talks are going to be curated by Kristen and her team, and others are going to be selected through an open call. And that call is going to be separate from the regular program call, so please be on the lookout for that. So in closing, I'm honored and delighted to serve the next year as your president. We have a fantastic leadership team, a very energetic executive board, and lots of committees filled with wonderful volunteers ready to do the work of the society. So I hope each of you will consider what you can contribute to SIOP this year, and I look forward to seeing you all in Hawaii. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin, who will tell us a little bit more about Hawaii.
Thank you, Tammy. So next year, we are headed to the beautiful shores of Hawaii for our conference in Honolulu. Now, this is the first time that SIOP, the conference has been held outside the contiguous United States, and it is a not-to-be-missed special event. Just to entice you a little bit, we have a short video to show you a little bit about our destination.
6 islands, each with its own unique personality, bathed in sunshine, surrounded by the sea, and infused with a legendary spirit known throughout the world as Aloha, which breathes life into all who embrace it. The Hawaiian Islands.
All right, so who's ready to go to Hawaii? So I stand between you and the closing reception, which is right next door, starting at 6. There's lots of Texas-style attractions, including a mechanical bull. Woo! So please join us over there. So this concludes the plenary session, but before we end, I want to say a big thanks to everybody who's made this such a fantastic conference. In particular, I really want to thank our executive director, Dave Nershi, and the whole... Woo! Woo! The whole administrative office, who really are the backbone of this conference. Thank you all for coming, and have safe travels home.